Welcome, everyone, to the very first episode of Unheard Stories, a podcast dedicated to providing a platform for voices that are often overlooked. I'm your host, Marcus, and I'm so grateful you've joined us today. This podcast is brought to you by the Mindful Moments Initiative, reminding us all that mental wellness matters and that every story deserves to be heard. Our goal with this series is simple: to listen, to hear the stories that don't always make the headlines, but shape lives and communities in real, sometimes painful, sometimes beautiful ways. For our first episode, we're diving into what it means to grow up without a father, to navigate the pressures of the streets, and to face the stigma that still surrounds mental health, especially for men of color. Our guest today is Jacob. Jacob, thank you so much for being here and for trusting us with your story.
Thank you, Marcus. It means a lot to be here, especially to talk about something that's not easy, but I know it's important.
Let's start at the beginning. Can you paint a picture for us of what your childhood was like?
Yeah, of course. I grew up in East LA, in a neighborhood where honestly not having a father around wasn't rare. My mom raised me and my two sisters by herself. She worked long hours cleaning houses, sometimes leaving before the sun came up and not coming back until after dark. She did everything she could for us, but there was always this emptiness. I'd see other kids with their dads, and I'd wonder what that felt like. I never met my father, not once. I don't even have a picture of him.
Did you ever ask your mom about him?
Yeah, a few times. She'd just say he had his own issues, that he couldn't be there for us. I could tell it hurt her to talk about it, so I stopped asking, but I always had questions. Sometimes I'd imagine what he was like if he ever thought about me, if he was still alive. It's like you're missing a chapter from your own story.
How did that absence shape you as you got older?
It made me feel like I had to be the man of the house from a really young age. I'd hear that all the time from my mom, from my uncles, from neighbors. You gotta be strong for your family. You're the man now. But I was just a kid. I didn't know what that meant, except that I wasn't supposed to cry, wasn't supposed to be scared. I started hanging out with older kids on the block, trying to act tough, trying to prove myself. There's this pressure, especially for Latino guys, to never show weakness. You gotta be macho, right? But inside, I was scared and confused.
Was that something people around you encouraged? That idea of being tough?
Definitely. My uncles, my friends, even my teachers sometimes. If you showed emotion, people would clown you or say, don't be soft. I remember one time I got jumped on my way home from school. I came home with a busted lip, and my uncle just said, you gotta fight back. Don't let them see you cry. So I learned to keep it all inside, but that doesn't mean the pain goes away, it just gets heavier.
Did you ever feel safe enough to talk to anyone about how you were feeling?
Not really. The only time I got close was with my cousin Danny. He lost his dad to deportation, so he kind of understood. We talk sometimes late at night about what we missed out on, but even then, we'd make jokes or change the subject. Therapy, that was for other people. In my neighborhood, mental health wasn't something we talked about. If you were sad, people said, just get over it. If you were anxious, they told you to pray. There was no space for real conversations about feelings.
Did you ever want to reach out for help?
Yeah, I did. I remember in high school, I heard about a counselor. I thought about going, but I was embarrassed. What if people found out? What if my mom thought I was weak? Plus, the counselor didn't speak Spanish, and I didn't feel like she'd understand where I was coming from, so I just kept everything bottled up.
How did that affect your life as you got older?
It built up, man. I started getting into trouble. Fights, skipping school, running with the wrong crowds. I felt angry all the time, and I didn't know why. I started drinking, trying to numb everything. There were nights I'd just sit on the roof and wonder if things would ever get better. I was just surviving, not really living. It wasn't until my little sister started having panic attacks that I realized we needed help. Seeing her go through that and not knowing what to do made me realize I couldn't keep ignoring my own pain.
What changed for you after that?
I started writing music. I'd always loved hip hop, so I started writing my own rhymes about what I was feeling. It was the first time I felt like I could let it out, even if nobody was listening. I also started talking to a couple of friends who'd been through the same stuff. We meet up, share stories, just be real with each other. It wasn't therapy, but it helped. I also started looking up stuff about mental health online, learning that what I was feeling was normal and that it was okay to ask for help.
Do you think the stigma around mental health is starting to change?
A little. I see more people talking about it on social media and more organizations popping up, but there's still a long way to go, especially in Latino communities. People still think asking for help is weak or that you should just handle your problems on your own. That's why I wanted to do this podcast. If even one person hears this and feels less alone, it's worth it.
What do you wish people understood about growing up without a father and about mental health in your community?
I wish people knew it's not just about being tough. We're human. We feel things even if we don't show them. Not having a dad leaves a hole, and it takes time and support to heal that. And mental health isn't just for other people, it's for all of us. We all deserve to be heard, to get help, to heal.
If you could go back and talk to your younger self, what would you say?
I tell him it's okay to feel, it's okay to cry. You don't have to carry it all by yourself. And I tell him he's not alone, even when it feels like it. There are people out there who care, even if you haven't met them yet.
Jacob, thank you so much for sharing your story with us. Your honesty and vulnerability are powerful, and I know your words will resonate with a lot of people.
Thank you for letting me share, Marcus. I hope this helps somebody out there.
If you're listening and you're struggling, please know you're not alone. We'll include mental health resources in the show notes. And if you know someone who might need to hear this, please share this episode. Unheard Stories is brought to you by the Mindful Moments Initiative, reminding you that taking care of your mind is just as important as taking care of your body. Thank you for joining us for our very first episode. We'll be back next week with another voice, another journey. Until next time, I'm Marcus, and this is Unheard Stories. Thank you for joining us for today's episode of Unheard Stories. We hope Jacob's journey resonated with you. Now, to summarize some of the key points from the conversation, here are Kenny and Luke from the Mindful Moments Initiative with a quick recap.
Welcome back, everyone. Today we're diving into experiences that are deeply personal. Stories about growing up without a father, the weight of community expectations, and the struggle with mental health, especially in communities of color.
Absolutely. It's really intense how these narratives bring to light the challenges and the resilience of individuals.
Right. And the conversation really revolves around the idea that sometimes life doesn't give you the textbook support. For instance, imagine being raised by a single parent in East LA and feeling that constant emptiness from the absence of a father.
It's powerful. It echoes how missing a major figure like that can leave a void in your sense of identity.
Exactly. And you hear about the pressure to step up early, not just to fill a father's shoes, but to be the rock for the family. It's like, from a young age, the boy is told to be the man.
Right. That responsibility can be incredibly heavy, especially when society tells you man up or show no weakness.
Yes, and that's a key point. The narrative shows that while being strong might be joined with street credibility, it often comes at the cost of suppressing genuine emotion.
Exactly. And it's ironic because the very act of bottling up emotions leads to even deeper pain over time.
Absolutely. The speaker in the narrative talks about being told over and over that you gotta be strong and don't cry, which only makes it harder to process feelings.
Yeah.
That kind of advice, though intended to empower, really can isolate you in the long run.
Right. And then there's the added layer of not getting proper mental health support. Like, therapy wasn't considered, especially in spaces where there's this cultural stigma surrounding it.
Exactly. There's this whole resistance to reaching out for help, partly because of embarrassment, and partly because the community norms put a premium on keeping pain private.
Mm-hmm. It's like the whole idea of vulnerability being seen as a weakness, particularly for Latino men, takes a toll on internal well-being, doesn't it?
It sure does. And what's interesting is how, despite all of this, there's a subtle transformation that happens. The narrative shows that eventually, finding a form of expression, like writing music, becomes a kind of therapy.
Yeah, that's a powerful shift. I mean, turning pain into art, rewriting it into music or poetry, it's a way to reclaim your story, right?
Precisely. It's like, you channel the heaviness of those experiences into something that can be shared.
Exactly.
And that might even help someone else.
But I wonder if relying on indirect support, like sharing stories with friends, is enough. Wouldn't professional help go a long way?
That's a great point. And while there is a growing acceptance, people talking more openly about mental health, our narrative clearly shows that cultural barriers, like not speaking the same language as a counselor, can discourage reaching out.
Mm-hmm, true. Right, the language barrier is so critical. It's not just about having someone to talk to. It's about having someone who really gets where you're coming from.
Yeah, absolutely. And this speaks to a broader issue: the need for culturally sensitive mental health resources. Imagine if more counselors could relate to the specific challenges of their clients' backgrounds.
That would make a huge difference. It'd definitely create a more inclusive support system. And it could help dismantle the stigma that's been so deeply ingrained.
Exactly. And the narrative really drives home that point. Even when the path to traditional therapy is blocked, communities often create their own ways of coping through shared experiences, music, or simply venting with someone who understands.
But I'm curious. Do you think these informal methods can structurally change perceptions long term?
That's a probing question. I'd say they're a start. But there needs to be a systematic shift as well. It's like, the narrative argues that while personal expression is healing, there's still a lot of work needed to create environments where asking for help is seen as courageous rather than weak.
Yeah, exactly. And considering the context, it's also about community realization. When people start understanding that vulnerability can be a strength, it changes the dynamic.
Yes, and that's what struck me most in the conversation. The idea that the absence of a father not only creates personal challenges, but also illuminates how society's rigid gender roles can add to the burden.
Definitely. It's almost like a double-edged sword. The pain of loss on one side, and the heavy expectations of toughness on the other.
Right, and I like how the narrative doesn't shy away from exposing how this pressure, like the demand to be tough or macho, often leads to self-destructive behavior. It paints a vivid picture of a cycle. Pain leading to, anger, then to substance abuse or even violence.
Totally. And it makes you think, could more open dialogue and targeted mental health initiatives break this cycle?
Absolutely. The story shows that change starts when someone dares to reach out, like talking to a cousin, or eventually turning to creative outlets. Every time someone shares these experiences,
yes, exactly,
it chips away at the stigma.
But it also means society needs to listen and validate these experiences, rather than brushing them off with a just get over it mentality.
Right, and that's the central appeal of this podcast, the focus on listening. It's not about quick fixes, but about giving space for unheard stories and, genuine human connection.
That listening aspect is crucial. I agree. And it kind of challenges the idea that vulnerability is a flaw. Instead, it shows it as a pathway to healing.
Exactly. And it's interesting how through this, the narrative brings forth a call for community and self-compassion. It stresses that healing is a shared journey.
Yep, that's a strong message. Now, I do have a bit of a critique, though. While the story emphasizes the importance of sharing and internal coping, I wonder if it might inadvertently downplay the need for professional intervention.
That's a fair point. I mean, the narrative does acknowledge that professional help can be challenging to pursue, but it also underscores that relying solely on informal networks might leave some issues unaddressed.
Yes, exactly.
Right. It's a delicate balance. We need to appreciate the value of personal support systems while continuing to advocate for accessible, culturally competent mental health services.
And the discussion here is a reminder that mental wellness matters just as much as physical well-being. We all deserve care.
For sure, and it's inspiring how, even amidst all the harsh experiences, there's hope, like finding your voice through music or realizing it's okay to, not be okay sometimes.
Yep, absolutely. It's a call to action for both individuals and communities to break the silence and allow for healing.
And that's, the real takeaway. Honoring our stories, no matter how painful, because each one is a stepping stone towards a more compassionate future.
Right on. I couldn't agree more. It's these raw, unfiltered stories that remind us why sharing is so powerful.
Thanks for joining this conversation. Here's to many more dialogues that break barriers and build understanding.
Absolutely. Thanks for the deep dive. Until next time.